Do you want to know how to burn calories, speed up your metabolism, and effectively build muscle? In this video, I'm going to show you how to properly use the squat rack and how to properly squat so you can effectively do all of these things. So why use a barbell? I'm not saying to never do dumbbell squats, but you should always be focusing on doing more weight, and if you stick with just a dumbbell, eventually you're not going to be able to hold that much weight in your hands. And in order to achieve optimal results, you want to continuously be moving up in weight. So what this is going to do is speed up your metabolism, because when you have more muscle mass, you burn more calories. Even when you're just sitting around, it's going to shape your body so much more effectively, and you can eat more. As soon as I started putting more emphasis on heavy compound movements like squats, I was able to lose weight on higher calories, and it was very nice. Very nice. So these tips are really, really important, especially as you start using more weight. But even if you're literally just using the bar for now, you still want to be focusing on the form and the technique, because then it's more of a habit as you get into the heavier weights and you don't have to think so much about it, and these things just happen. They just happen. So we're gonna start now. We're gonna start with our squat rack. Squat rack. Squat rack. Okay, so first we're gonna talk about the height of the bar. So you don't want it too high and you don't want it too low. So this is way too high. So basically, it's dangerous because you have to calf raise it up, and that's gonna waste energy. So then when you go into your squat, it's not gonna be good. It's gonna be terrible. And then at this height, it's way too low. So basically I'll have to quarter squat it out of the rack. So again, this is gonna waste energy, and you just don't wanna do that. You wanna be saving your energy so you have an optimal squat. Optimal squat. And here we are at perfect height. So this is gonna line up around your armpits, and then you're gonna unrack it and it'll nicely clear. And I've wasted no energy whatsoever. So another important thing that most squat racks have that you will likely want to use at one point is these safety racks. So this is gonna help you if you're, say, trying a heavy weight that you don't know if you're gonna fail and you don't have a spotter. It's going to catch the bar, and it's a really nice piece of mind to have if you're scared to attempt a lift. So that would look like this. So pretend I'm like, this is too heavy. I just drop it back, and then I'm good to go. So for that reason, you wouldn't want it too low, because if it's too low, it's not gonna catch the bar and you could still get injured. So make sure it's literally just at your bottom point, and then you're good, you are safe. So now you're talking about bar placement. So you always want the bar to be centered. It has to be centered on the rack and centered on your back. So to do that, you want to look at the details on the bar. There's always going to be, like, there's a little line here. There's like the clear part here. So there's always things to be looking at. So you don't want the bar to be farther off on one side. Otherwise, you're going to start off really off balance. So you want that to be centered. There you go. And then when you're getting into it, you want to make sure you are centered. And then you want to make sure your hands are on even sides. You don't want one hand here and one hand here, or just, they have to be even. Otherwise, when you go into your squat, you're not going to have balance. Okay, so the only other thing you have to think about for when it comes to bar placement is high bar or low bar. So they both have different movement mechanics with different transfers of forces, but at the end of the day, it comes down to personal preference, so you can try out both. So when you're doing high bar, you typically have a little bit of a narrower stance, and you're generally able to stay upright a little bit more than if you were doing low bar. High bar is also great for athletes because the movement patterns you're getting from it transfer over into your sport more so than a low bar squat would. And when you're doing when you're doing high bar, you're gonna feel the movement a little bit more in your quads because of the way the weight is lined up with your body, which is more on top. For low bar, the difference is obviously it's gonna be much lower on your back, and usually people will have a little bit of a wider stance, not too wide, but a little wider than a high bar. Typically, you can also do more weight with a low bar squat, and because of the transfer, because of how the weight is on your back, it pushes your hips back a little further, meaning it takes the pressure off of your knees, and you're also gonna feel it a little bit more in your glutes and your hamstrings. So this is a good option if you have knee trouble. It might feel a little bit more comfortable than a high bar squat. Okay, so to find proper positioning for low bar, you're gonna have it where you would for high bar, so it's resting on your traps, and then you're basically just gonna go to the next notch down, and you'll feel it because it kind of just sits there a little bit, and then you're gonna obviously be squeezing your back, and then there it is. You got your low bar. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about unracking the bar. So at this point, you're already under the bar, your feet should be directly under. You want to be squeezing your glutes forward to get it out. You don't want to be using your lower back and just like lifting it, because number one, you could injure yourself, and number two, you're wasting energy. So really take a breath, squeeze the glutes and forward, and there you go. You also want to make sure your feet are even. You don't want to be starting off like this or anything. You need to make sure they're completely in line with each other. So now we're going to go over the walkout. So you've unracked the bar. Once you've unwrapped it, you can stand there for a second, just make sure you're feeling balanced. And then you want to make sure you're not taking too many steps back, because that's going to waste your energy. So 3 is usually a good amount. So you've unwrapped your bar, you're going to take one little step back, you're going to take another step to plant your foot, and then you're going to line up your other foot. So once you get into this position, you can make small adjustments if you need, but just keep it to a minimum. You don't want to be sitting here like dancing under the bar, especially again once you start getting to heavier weights. This is really going to make a big difference. It's very important. So that is your foot placement. Okay, so before you get into your squat, you're gonna take a deep breath, and you're gonna take it through your nose. So deep breath, and then you're gonna be bracing your abs. So that's not really the same as flexing. It's kind of like you're pushing out your abs, not pushing out your butt like I just did though. That would be really bad, you would hurt yourself. So just be pushing out. You're not gonna look as thin, and that's all right. And then, so you're taking your breath, going into the squat, and you're still bracing on the way up, so you don't actually breathe out until you get up. So that would look like this. When you're squatting, you don't want to think of it as just like an up and down movement. You kind of want to think of it as a forward and back movement when it comes to your hips. So you're pushing your hips back, and then you're pushing them forward. So if you're struggling to come up, just really think about driving your hips forward. You don't want to be like going like that or anything, but again, if you're struggling, say if you're trying to hit a new PR and you're on your way up and you're struggling, don't just push up, like think of driving your hips forward, and then that's going to give you a little bit more power. So a really important thing to remember when you're doing your squat is to drive your knees out slightly. So you don't want them caving in. Sometimes when you start to struggle, they'll want to cave in. So no squats that look like this. Always have them driving out slightly. And that's going to protect your knees and give you optimal results. So another really important thing to remember is that you go down to at least parallel. So basically, your hip joint should be a little bit below your knee joint. You don't want to be up here. You want to be here. Otherwise, you're not going to get the full benefits of the squat. Form is always more important than weight. I might talk about moving up in weight a lot, but if it's going to start making your squats look terrible and you're like doing a quarter squat, then that doesn't count. So always make sure you're getting full range of motion. So next we're going to talk about your back angles. So while you do want to stay as upright as you can, a little bit of leaning forward is totally fine. Certain people are going to have to lean forward more than other people. For example, somebody with longer femurs and a shorter torso is going to have to lean forward in order to get full depth. They will not be able to stay upright. So what's more important than whether you're leaning forward or not is that you're maintaining spine neutrality. You don't want your back to go into flexion. So that would mean that it's caving forward and it's going to place uneven pressure on different areas of your back, and that's going to obviously give you injuries. So the key thing is maintaining spine neutrality. So even if you're leaning forward, that's fine, but you don't want to start caving, because that's when we run into some serious issues. So test it out, see how you do. A forward lean is okay as long as you are maintaining proper form with your back. So when you're re-racking the bar, you don't want to do it from too far away. So you don't want to be all the way up here and then leaning forward, because then, first of all, that's going to put unnecessary pressure on your lower back. And also, you have to do one side at a time, so then you can end up doing this, and that is a recipe for disaster. So, what you actually want to do is just walk right in to the bar and drop it down. The bar is like, the rack's not going to get hurt, so you can just full on like go in. And there you go. And that is how you use a squat rack. That is how you properly squat. If you guys found this helpful, I have another video on how to do hip thrusts, and it's the same thing. You're going to learn how to do the setup. You're going to learn how to properly perform the exercise for optimal results. So head on over there and watch that. And if you guys like this video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.